Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Just 5 days into the Chinese New Year, two major cases have occurred in China, the deadliest since the founding of the CCP's People's Republic of China, and both cases may be related to the loss of justice. Will China's society be heading towards an era of social disorder and chaos? Today we'll explore this topic. Let's start with an update on the Zhu County murder case that we reported in my last video. The day after the case, the city of Rizhao, where the case took place, issued an official document calling for a focused investigation of risks and dangers that could trigger extreme cases or events, and specifically naming 16 categories of people to be watched and investigated. People who have encountered problems or crises in the following sectors: real estate, medical dispute, and labor dispute, people involved in marital and neighborhood disputes, people who have petitioned, and people who have failed in invests, who are unemployed, who encountered difficulties in their lives, who have emotional issues, disharmony in their relationships, mental imbalance, mental disorder, young people who don't have parental care or guidance, people who have a violent tendency and who threaten to retaliate against society, or who may lead to violent conflict, etc. This suggests that extreme cases have indeed arisen before such a notice is issued. The problem is that with the economic downturn, more and more people will become the 16 categories of people mentioned in the document. Some people say at least 30% of the people meet these conditions, and it is not known if the CCP's police force is sufficient to implement close surveillance and control of all these people. These two photos of the village where the case took place are from today. You can see that the village is still heavily guarded. In addition, the CCP is still closely blocking information on the internet and social media. When keywords such as Zhu County or Zhaike Village are entered into various Chinese websites or search engines, virtually no relevant information is displayed. One netizen posted the following sentence: "Every New Year's Eve, there's always worry. This time it is Zhu County." Then a police officer called him and asked him to delete it. Another netizen who made a post completely unrelated to the murders but mentioned the place name Zhu County also received a call from the police, who also confirmed his home address first and asked if he was home, as if the police were going to go to his home if he was. He was driving at the time and was so scared that he pulled over to the side of the road, didn't dare to delay a second, and immediately deleted the post on his cell phone. In addition, government departments are issuing internal notices prohibiting anyone from talking about this vicious incident on the internet. There is also news that the government is closely checking out people in Linyi, a city about 1 hour and a half away from where the case took place, and there is speculation that it could be that the two killers, who have not yet been caught in the murder case, have fled to this part of the country and that the police are trying to apprehend them. This shows the embarrassing situation the CCP is facing. In order to control public opinion, the CCP tightly blocked the news. Then they couldn't publicize that the murders were wanted, and at the same time, they couldn't inform the public that armed murderers had fled to their city so that the public could pay attention to their safety. Zhao Lanjian, a former journalist from China, disclosed that his friend told him that the main killer was an ex-prisoner who was released in 2019, and those who were killed were all his elementary school classmates from the same village and their families because he believed that these people framed him to put him in prison. He used a modified nail gun and put steel balls in as bullets. Two of the killers are currently at large. Another unnamed netizen said that, as far as he knew, the murderer's wife had an affair with a man from the same village before, and when he went to seek justice from that man, he was instead beaten by him and has his leg broken, leaving him permanently disabled. Because that person was a more powerful people in the area. This person was later sent to jail for 8 years. When he got out of jail, he took crazy revenge on that man, his family members, and other people related to the incident. So far, I think this is probably the most factually correct version of the story, and the fact that the murderer was disabled has been mentioned by other sources before. The murderer must have had a deep seated grudge that he was able to calmly prepare and kill so many people in one fell swoop. He must have lost all confidence in the Chinese justice system, and that is why he chose to take revenge in such an extreme way. Another huge case took place on February 13th in Xintai, Hebei province. Let's watch a few videos first. As you can see from the videos, the explosion that occurred in the residential building was extremely powerful. The front door of the building on the ground floor was completely blown apart. The doors and windows on the first and second floors of a white building facing the street were all blown out. A balcony on the second floor was also destroyed, and debris was strewn across the street. Windows on the third floor and above were shattered, with some steel windows twisted and deformed. Additionally, video footage shows that on the ground floor of another white building, windows up to the third floor were blown out. Not far from this building, a two-story steel structure was also severely damaged, with its outer steel walls bent and detached. Anti-theft windows on the ground falling and the railings collapsing. The brick wall between the two buildings collapsed, and the ground was littered with broken bricks. These videos raised suspicions about whether there were multiple large explosions at the scene or if more than one building was affected by the explosion. Such powerful explosions, but in the beginning, the authorities claimed that only 3 people died, and then they stopped talking about it at all. However, according to a source inside China, the death toll is at least 16, with more than 30 people wounded. And it was also a revenge case. The explosive used were TNT, as well as an explosive called hexogen or cyclone, which is 1.5 times more powerful than TNT. It is said that the target of revenge in this case was the occupants of the residential building, and there were retired officials who were the enemies of the perpetrator. The perpetrator was a bankrupt businessman who paid to get the explosives from a local mine, and he detonated the explosives by remote control, has not yet been arrested and is now being sought. Therefore, judging from the above two major cases, the perpetrators had accumulated great grievances and could not find any other ways to resolve them, and they could not see any hope for their lives, so they chose to take desperate measures. Just a few days after the Chinese New Year, such vicious incidents have continued to break out, showing that the grievances of the whole society are getting stronger and stronger, and that China has long since ceased to be the safest country as boasted by the CCP. On the contrary, you may be lying at home doing nothing and somehow still get killed. Some people also say that in the present situation where China's real estate and stock markets are collapsing, the economy is in a serious downward spiral, the unemployment rate is climbing, and the income of the people is dropping. China has already entered an era of great turbulence. Another cruel reality is that after the CCP gained power in China, it has been brainwashing people with atheism and a philosophy of struggle for decades. Now, the evil consequences are manifesting. When many people who used to be kind and easygoing are forced to take things in their own hands, some of them will choose to respond to violence with violence, to respond to evil with evil, and to take revenge on society by killing officials and innocent people. Therefore, at a time when sky-high grievances are spreading all over China, the possibility of preventing the occurrence of the next bloodshed is very slim. So if things go on like this, how far will society go? This is really very worrying. Well, that's all for today. If you feel like signing up for a membership or making a donation, please visit my website at jenniferzengblog.com, jenniferzengblog.com. Otherwise, please help me spread the word by subscribing to my channel or sharing my videos. Thank you. See you next time.